How's everyone doing this morning? Good? You having a good time? I have had a great time here. I have to say this is so much fun, and I go to a lot of industry events. I've seen a lot of industries. I do not very often, very rarely see the camaraderie that I see here. So I applaud you all for that. You have an incredible thing going, and I also I think just should applaud the organizers of this event. Can we give it up for them? Because this has been amazing. All the panels, the speakers, I mean, this has just been great. So I appreciate being part of this. Thank you for inviting me. So my experience, I've been at some big companies, and I've been sort of the guy who was making a mess of things inside big companies, and I've also worked at some startups. And then I came to Fast Company, where we write about innovation, and we write about companies doing these things. And the question people always get is, how can I make my company more innovative, right? I mean, that's what they want to know. How can I do better, get a competitive edge, not be eaten up by the youngins who are coming up behind me, right? So that's what I'm going to try to talk about today, and I'm hoping I can give you some examples of things that you can take home and start to use, and use in tandem, I think, in many ways with what you got from Justin yesterday, right? There are some things that go hand in hand here. So I'm going to go over 3 big ideas today. The first is how large companies can innovate from within. The next, we'll talk about how startups disrupt through design and technology. And Dana made me promise I would have to take a drink every time I said disrupt during this conversation, so I'm going to try to limit it. That's one drink for me. And the last is marketplace trends that are going to shape your business, and I think all businesses, in the next 5 to 10 years. So let's start by talking about what impediments businesses have, large businesses have, when it comes to innovation. And one of the big things that happens is something called path dependence. So what is path dependence? Well, think about back when you were starting your company, and you could try everything, right? That was the advantage you had. And so you sort of experimented here, experimented there. Step 2, you figured out what worked. You said, hey, this is pretty good. Maybe this is my business over here. And then you start to repeat that, and you build efficiency into that. You get better and better at it, and you lock it into place, right? And that's what you do, right? And that's where you get path dependency. So path dependency can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. So let me give you an example of path dependency that is in all of our lives, right? The QWERTY keyboard. You all have, some of the people here have computers, iPads. You're all using that keyboard. You all know how to type. A lot of us know how to type without looking, right? QWERTY keyboard. Well, why are those letters in that order on the keyboard? Well, it's not because that's the most efficient way to put letters on a keyboard. It actually goes back to the mechanics of a typewriter. Every typewriter, a lot of people here remember them, I do. You have those hammers, right? Those metal hammers, each has a letter on it, right? And if you type too fast, sometimes those letters would stick together up there, and you'd have to reach in and pull them back, right? So the QWERTY keyboard is actually arranged in such a way so that that happens as infrequently as possible. It was designed around the mechanics of how those letters are spaced with those metal hammers so that you could type very quickly. So, as early as the 1800s and up into the 1930s, you had the Dvorak simplified keyboard. And even today with cell phones, people have invented different kinds of key setups that are much more efficient. So in fact, the Dvorak keyboard that I mentioned is made so that the center row of letters can actually be used to type 70% of all the words in the English language. But we haven't switched over. Why not? Well, because everybody knows how to do this, and since it was invented in 1860 by Charles Scholes and patented by the Remington Company, and they also, by the way, sold typewriting classes, that's it. We're stuck. We're going to use this keyboard, I think, forever or for a long time because we're just dependent. It's a path dependency. Let me give you another example, though, from business that I think you'll find more applicable and shows you the other side of path dependence, the problem of path dependence. The problem is for a company like Blockbuster, right? Now, it was great. You used to go to the video store, right? And you'd go pick out a DVD or a VHS before that. You'd take it up to the counter. You'd pay your rental fee. And, maybe you'd take it home. You'd bring it back late, they hoped, because that's where they made their margins, was on your late fees, right? And that was a great business for them. Until one day, Netflix comes along and says, hey, why don't we rethink this whole thing? Why don't we just send you your DVDs in the mail? We'll give you a flat subscription fee, no late fees. We're not going to mess around with this. Oh, that's a great model. So Blockbuster suddenly realized, well, we're dependent on these retail stores. We've got these stores. We've got late fees we need to charge. How do we change our business, right? But by the time